This is absolutely wonderful to have Miranda Thomas here today, Hunting the Scroll. And save your questions for the end of the presentation and we'll answer them, or Miranda will answer them for you. Here's my introduction for Miranda. In a Harvard interview, and I'm quoting Miranda Thomas said, "It's imperative for human beings to make things." She goes on to say, "Some people can't articulate through writing, so they learn to speak with their hands. People have come to rely on machines and have lost confidence in what humans can do themselves." Charles Shackleton and Miranda believe so strongly in things that are handmade, but they're on the verge of extinction. And Miranda is trying to keep it alive as well as Charles. In 1999, President Clinton commissioned one of Miranda Thomas's peace bowls as a gift for Pope John Paul II. President Obama and the United Nations have also given her bowls to dignitaries. Nancy Pelosi gave Pope Francis a Miranda Thomas peace bowl during an official US visit to the Vatican. Inside Miranda's bowl, there is a traditional symbol of peace, the dove, seen flying through the scroll of life, an ancient ceramics pattern representing the ebbs and flows of life. Miranda says the dove is serious in its labors and responsibilities as it carries its offering. It is the herald of renewed life on the earth. Please welcome Miranda Thomas.
Hello, everybody. So should we switch? Okay, we're here. Well, my name is Miranda Thomas, and I am a potter. I not only make pots, I decorate them. And I've come here today to tell you a story of about an obsession of mine, and that is this pattern I call the scroll. I am not an academic. This is a potter's view. Now you'll notice that the scroll after this lecture is everywhere. It surrounds us. Many people can't see it, but once you can see it, it's going to drive you crazy. So my job is to A, make you recognize it, track it like an animal, find its origins and its secrets, its ways of embellishment, and also see how it moves through civilizations and time and how it becomes one of the greatest devices, I believe, in the decorative arts. And you will be my cohorts in this hunt. So let's get cracking. In my early 20s, I had the luck of working with one of the greatest potters in the world. His name was Michael Cardew. Michael Cardew lived in Cornwall, England. Now, he was a master of form. He believed 80% of a vessel was its form. He recognized that beyond throwing pots, I wanted to learn to decorate. So he started feeding me examples that he admired. He fed me the Minoan pots, but he also showed me the Sung Dynasty pots from China. We stood there in absolute awe. In these pots, we could see there was no hesitation as they drew through the wet clay. It was done freehand. There was no tracing. It was like a dance, no turning back to erase errors. You could follow the potter's hands as they decorated through the wet slip. Also, to me, it seemed like there was no division between form and decoration. Then Michael turned to me and he then challenged me at the age of 20, I think I was 19 actually at the time, to learn to decorate like these potters. He was 80, to obtain their skills, to grab hold of the verve, balance, energy, and flow these potters seemed to possess. He then sent me to go work with his friend, Alan Cager Smith, a master of pottery decoration. He was filling my quiver with arrows. Alan Cager Smith was a famous decorator of pots. Unlike Michael, he believed 80% of a pot was its decoration. They liked to fight about this. I trained working in his pottery for another 2 years, learning the skills of brushwork and how to see space and build patterns. I am the experiment of sorts of these two teachers and learning the marriage of form and decoration. They both encouraged me to seek my own style. So I took myself to as many museums and collections of pots as I could. I fell in love with this little tiny 13th century Jin Dynasty Chinese pot in the Ashmolean Museum in Oxford. The pattern I believed was Chinese in origin. I thought this little Chinese pot was so simple, yet the decoration was complex and hard. It hurt my brain to recreate it. I couldn't do it. I have been working to master it ever since. Little did I realize what a journey it would take me on. I was entering the entrancing world of the scroll pattern. Now this is the scroll. I'm going to try to get the cursor working. Anyway, the cursor, the scroll, it works in one direction like a frieze. It moves across. The scroll is always moving in the one direction, effortlessly across space like a river. It is constantly moving forward, yet reflecting backward as it travels. This is a simplified version of it. This pattern is very confusing to draw freehand. One's brain initially finds it difficult. It is often drawn wrong. It is a combination of splitting lines, waves, and circles, an infinite platform, a roadmap for embellishment. The scroll, I believe, is not a universal pattern. It is a learned pattern. It was taught from one craftsman to another. Because it is a learned pattern, you can track it as it moves from one civilization to another. So let's start tracking its origins. Now for this lecture, did this sort of combination of its history. It's dizzying to look at, so we're not going to worry about it. We're going to keep moving along, and I'll show you step by step. Now, if you're a potter and you're decorating pots, you're working in 3 dimensions, and I've given you a point A. And you must cover all the space between point A, as I have labeled here. And then as you turn your pot and work, you're all the way around back to point A again. Now, the first forms of decoration were geometric: circles, spirals, rectangles, squares, triangles, lines. These are all universal patterns. They turn up in all ancient cultures around the world. Note the time it takes for me to get from A to A. Takes quite a long time, right? Takes patience. So 6,000 years ago, these pots were made without a pottery wheel in Persia. And you can see how they have broken up the spaces into these sort of windows, triangles, dots, lines. And then over here, the medallion. I call circles medallions because you can actually decorate inside of them as well as the circles themselves being ornate. Medallions. Potters loved medallions. You could move quickly around the space from A to A, and they also loved spirals. They could link up their spirals and get to A quickly. And this little pot was probably one of the first made on the pottery wheel from 3000 BC Egypt. And you can see the linked circles, the medallions in it. Now, with the invention of the pottery wheel, so much fun. Potters just started going bonkers. They just touched the side of the pot and off they went. and they made lines, 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 more lines, stripes. They loved it. And you can see thick lines, thin lines, whizzing around. And then if they wiggled their brush on the side of the pot, magic, they get a wave. So this wonderful picture from Babylon, you see this potter here, sort of, he's got a ratty old brush, but he's been able to do the wave pattern. And then you can see this sort of, I can barely see my clicker together. There we go. You can see a sort of tooling. It's a terrible slide, but you can see a sort of comb was wiggled on the side of the pot. Then the waves started being embellished like vines, or make one reminiscent of the sea. In the early Crete Minoan pots, you see a beautiful example of this, of waves and fish and lines reminiscent of the sea. Now, if you're wanting to decorate vertically, many ancient potters, they did this thing, which I call the split line. They go up from the bottom, they reach across one direction, then they go in the opposite direction and stop. And you'll see the area between, I call the Y, is an area to concentrate as well on in this. So here in ancient Crete, you can see this splitting of the line I'm talking about, how it goes straight up, goes circles around one direction, then the other, and then this is sort of reminiscent of either a lily or a tree or a palm. It's used a lot. In Egypt, you also see this sort of splitting of the line, and it's like this lotus. And this lotus pattern became very prominent in Egypt, but there is no scroll. Whereas in China, they did the split line, but they used it for horns and tails. Just like you can see on these early bronze pieces, there's a sort of dog-like creature with his tail. And then here, this is a famous monster totem symbol. And this is his horns, and his eyes are on either side here. Now in Crete, in the early kingdom, there something magical was also happening with the split line. You can see the line splits and divides, and yet it's got this embellishment, this wonderful freedom of embellishment. And in the Y, this other sort of rosette going on. And here, the linking of the spirals becoming waves like in the sea. Now, I'm sure there must be a scroll around somewhere. And this is where I need your help. I have looked and looked and looked in so many collections in Crete. I cannot find the scroll. It's pregnant in these pots. It's almost ready to be born, but it's not born. The split line stops. What happened? Why didn't it evolve? If you look at the date, 1600 BC, something massive happened in Santorini, a huge earthquake that threw maybe the evolving of the scroll, the birth of the scroll, down under the sea, and it's hidden there, maybe perhaps even in Atlantis. Who knows? All I know is that it's evolving to become the scroll from the split line didn't happen for another 1,000 years. Suddenly, Greece and Crete went back into the Dark Ages. Half of Crete was gobbled up. There's still many, many things that are under the sea which we don't know about. But you can see the patterns went back to just geometric and lines again. One thing they did get excited about was compasses, and they started doing these compassing patterns here. But it was lines, 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 lines. Hello, wait a minute. In the Met, if you go down to New York, you will see this tremendous, magnificent Greek pot. Now, I'm not going to keep going back to the dates. You can read them yourself. I don't want to screw up. So, but one thing I noticed is, hey, wait a minute, what's going on? There's something pretty amazing going on in this pot here. It looks like the scroll. It's almost like the potter's seen it, but he wasn't taught how to do it, but he remembered it. And there he is, look, he's getting lost. He's trying to find his way, and he can't go back. Remember, he can't erase, so he's trying desperately to do something. And then here down in the spirals, he's trying to link up to sort of make the scroll. He almost gets there, but it just ends up as spirals again. Now, I wonder what's going on. Well, we were all taught at school, or I was anyway, that Greece was the center of everything. But actually at this time, it was Assyria. It was the great Assyrian Empire in the East that was ruling the world. Greece was only just an outpost. And Ashurnasirpal, when he was building this empire, he needed help to win his wars. And he went all the way to Greece and got mercenary soldiers to come and help fight his wars up and down the coast. And his empire grew and grew until the great brutal king Ashurbanipal took hold of the empire. And here you can see he's beheading some creature, poor person here. But if you look behind the beheading, you can see these little bush-like trees or palm trees. And they become a pattern that we often refer to as the palmet. And you can see this palmet in its glory at the Hood Museum here at Dartmouth, but you can see it's the split line at the base of the palmet. And then the Y is this like palm-like tree. Now here is Ashurbanipal relaxing on his throne with his queen. And he built one of the greatest gardens outside of Babylon. And here you have the scroll reaching up from his garden, and look at the very top, you'll see that split line. Do you see it? Mm-hmm. So here is the palmet, putting decoration between the split line. And I encourage you to go and start looking for it, because here, this pot, believe it or not, was made in Rhodes, but it was found in Corinth in Greece, which was west of Athens. And you'll see in this top corner, you can see the two palmets. Here are the two soldiers that most everybody else is interested in, but I wasn't. I was interested in these palmets. And if you look very closely, there's two eyes, 1, 2, peering out at you. And perhaps this was a good luck omen, like the seeing eye. And the mercenaries from Greece started adorning their armor with palmets. And they wanted to bring things back to Greece, but they couldn't carry much. So they used to hang these little bottles, these perfume bottles, from their wrists as they rode back to Greece and brought them back to their loved ones back in Greece. And you can find these little perfume bottles everywhere. But if you look, you'll see there is the palmet pattern being carried back into Greece. Meanwhile, there were two potters back in Athens, and they have helped me more than anything in tracking the scroll. If you look, one is called Amasis, and Amasis is in many, many collections, but you will see on the right-hand side here, there is the scrolling pattern, and the palmet has really decreased in size, but it's beginning to travel, decorate the outer edges of the pot. Now, at the same time, there was another potter called Exekius. John Boardman thought he was the most talented of all the Greek painters. And I have to say, I agree. Beyond his wonderful, lively decorations of people, it's this decorated line. Now, he signed his pots. And here you have, on the side of the pot, this linking of spirals, but it's beginning to, it's not stopping anymore. It's reaching out across the pot and it's moving. His student, the so-called London painter, because this pot is in London, it's unknown who did it, but it was supposedly a student of Exekius. And you can see the palmet here and this linking line, but he's not able to do it traveling like Ezekias. So this is Ezekias later on in his career. And what I think is extraordinary is suddenly the palmette has completely disappeared and he's much more lively with his line. And I believe, or I am trying to believe, that he perhaps, maybe it's gone down to one potter who discovered the scroll, gave birth to the scroll. And this is again where I need your help. I cannot find the scroll anywhere around the world before the time of Ezekias, 560 BC. I want you to burn that date into your brains. I want you to go out and see if you can find it in any museum. And if you do, you are to call me, you are to email me, and you are to let me know, because I am hunting this down. And if it's not under the sea in Atlantis, perhaps Ezekias discovered it for himself. For once you see it, you can see how quickly it sped up pottery production. It meant that somebody could decorate a surface very fast. They're still incorporating medallions, lines, and they're moving fast, and it has this incredible movement. Now, Anticoides was a student of Ezekias, and here he is, also thought to be an immigrant from the east. Here he's replaced Ashurbanipal on the throne with Heracles, and he's remembered, and he's put Athena here offering some sort of good luck token to Heracles, and there's the vine traveling in the background. There is no scroll in this pot. However, when he draws Artemis later on in his career, there she is holding the scroll as her gift to her brother Apollo, as he's just about to do battle with Heracles. So once you see it, you start seeing it everywhere. So here it is in the Getty Museum on the left, really lively, reaching out. The palmette has suddenly appeared in the middle of the scroll. But here in Glasgow Museum, you see it meandering, and this potter's having a whale of a time, going everywhere with the scrolls. I'm like, oh, go this way, and oh, maybe I'll go that way, and I'll put the palmette here. And anyways, having a great time. And you can see this in Glasgow, this pot. So yippee, once it gets going, the Greeks really lead the scroll into sophistication. It becomes incredibly sophisticated, draw freehand. The palmette becomes very central to it, but you can see the use of line is just stunning, and you start seeing the scroll everywhere. You also start noticing the Scythians, whether they're pillaging the civilizations, they started maybe carrying it back in their nomadic horseways across the northern steppes. Not only did they take treasures and pillage treasures, they also pillaged craftsmen. They took craftsmen as slaves or as citizens as well. And here, beautiful Daphne holding up the scroll as she heads on her travels on her beautiful goose. And the scroll, just like Daphne, starts to seriously move. It heads north towards Rome. And in Etruria, suddenly you see the scroll appearing in many pots. You can see it becomes almost like a fountain of life as it reaches up here. And then there are little fireflies of decoration around it, giving it a very mystical feeling. And here, this beautiful little boy on his white dolphin playing the flute is surrounded by the scroll, connoting the sea. And as you go into Rome, suddenly the scroll appears and you start seeing it everywhere. Now, the Romans had this thing where they left the line and they started embellishing the scroll in very sweet ways, but the line was the most dominant thing. And this is what I call the Pompeian style. It's more about the line, the scroll, and then they would embellish it. And you can see this beautifully illustrated at the Isabella Garden Museum, where they've recreated this mosaic from Augustus's home at the time of Hadrian's reign. So with the Romans, you can see this tremendous empire that they were building, and the scroll starts appearing all around. I found it in Hertfordshire in England, and then down in Carthage in North Africa. So the scroll starts moving. And I drew this map for this lecture, and you can see how the yellow are the palmette influencing the birth of the scroll here, which I believe to be so far Exekias. And then once it gets born, it starts traveling up through Italy, it goes to Britain, it goes out to France and Spain, it goes across the northern steppes, and then it starts moving back into Persia, and then the Sasanians grab it. Now, the Sasanians were incredibly powerful Persian people that were expanding their empire at this time. And they started embellishing the scroll with a plant, which we all know as the acanthus. But you know, many people call this pattern the acanthus pattern, but I don't, because I haven't been able to find the acanthus leaf on this pattern before this date, before the Sasanians got it. So I am tracking it and still looking for it. The Sasanians made it lyrical, like this wonderful lady doing a dance with two swords. It almost becomes music. It becomes part of the noise in this pattern. And here, a Syrian soldier takes off on his battle, and he's perhaps bringing the scroll with him along the way. And here's another Sasanian pot, and they start moving into China during the Tang dynasty. And suddenly all the potters in the Tang dynasty start decorating pots similar to the Sasanians. Now remember, I thought that little pot I fell in love with was Chinese, but you know, I cannot find the scroll anywhere in China before 600 CE. So that's your job, again, to go out and start looking, see if you can find the scroll before 600 CE. And once the Tang potters got hold of it, or the metal workers in China, they own it, they take it, they really move with it. And just going back west again, we go to Jerusalem, to the Dome of the Rock, and you'll see that the Jewish temple has really taken the scroll as a symbol of life. It's like a fountain reaching out, moving around. And then the Muslims take over the Dome of the Rock, and you start seeing the scroll in more of an Islamic style, also decorating that space. And I keep tracking it. So in the Byzantine world, you find it as road markers. Along this edge here, you can see the scroll. It appears suddenly in the Book of Kells. Did the Sasanians or the Scythians, did they maybe bring it up north? Anyway, there it is in Ireland now. The Anglo-Saxons suddenly made it theirs. It became a symbol of Christian faith. It became a symbol of everlasting life as well. And these are road markers that were all over Anglo-Saxon Britain. And then you can see them being used as tombstones. And here is the scroll reaching up, embodying life itself. And the Iranians and the Iraqis and the Persians and the Egyptians, something else happened. They started treating the scroll almost as a metaphysical symbol. It becomes mystical, it becomes magical. It's beyond the physical. It's again, a feeling of good luck or the air around us. And the Sung potters, again, they became incredibly literate with the scroll. Not only that, they started getting into its complexities. And this is what I want to show you next. If you're a potter and you're decorating, suddenly all I have to do is turn my brush very slightly to the left. And I start doing the same motion, like a dance, following the scroll backwards. And suddenly, it appears like a fern going back. And that's within the limits of the inside of the scroll. Now on this Persian pot, you can see that happening right on the edge. Here, the scroll goes up and around, and they have decorated the inside of the scroll to make those little lobes like the fern. Now, if you're a potter and you decide to go the other way, you take your brush and you don't go left. I think I did here just for a second, and then you start tracing the outside of the scroll line. Something completely different happens. It's a real exploration into space. Suddenly the scroll gets large. It can leave the confines of the scroll, and it becomes something completely different. You can reach out across the pot, and it becomes almost like coral growing. And this pot in the Brooklyn Museum, is a very good example of this outside of the decoration of the scroll. And this one here, also of the Sung Dynasty, is the outside decoration of the scroll. And then they really got into space. I mean, this is potters exploring space to the utmost degree. And, you know, this would make me personally go bonkers if I needed to decorate like this. And when I was in China in Jingzhen, I actually caught a movie of a gentleman, an 80-year-old gentleman, decorating a pot very like this. He was moving very slowly, carefully, breathing heavily as he went around, following the roadmap of the scroll and decorating a pot with incredible, elaborate embellishment. And then this potter loved brushwork, and my God, he had tremendous skill and speed with the scroll. And as we're moving across to Korea, you start seeing the scroll take hold, and it's lovely, naive embellishment of the scroll. You can see in the Y, it's sort of, he's trying, it's working hard, and it's very sweet. Whereas at the same time, go back to Pisa, and I call Pisa Scrollville. You will find the scroll everywhere. It's all up the columns. It's in the doorways. It's on the lintels. It is on the steps. It is everywhere. If you start looking in early Renaissance throughout Europe, you really see the scroll take hold. And at the same time, in Isfahan, these domes of interlacing scrolls get more and more elaborate and sophisticated. And this frieze on the side here, it's scrolls laid on top of other scrolls. I hope you can see it. Then at Notre Dame, there's a very sad tale of the two west doors, which are known as the Devil's Doors. Now, a young man who was in his 20s, an incredible iron worker, banged on these doors and said, "Would you let me decorate them?" And the priest there said, "Oh, yes, we'd love that." So he went away, and it took him about 5 years. His name was Biscone. And he came back and he finished the doors, and everybody gasped. They couldn't believe how beautiful they were. They were so beautiful that the church turned around and called him the devil himself, because no man could possibly make such beauty as a human being. He must be the devil. And so the poor man went and killed himself. But there you can see the Devil's Doors in Notre Dame. The French, in their manuscripts, they use the scroll as a sort of weather, letting you know before the hunt there was an ominous sky, a red sky with swirling motions. And then to the right, the sky was a beautiful blue twinkling day as a man blows his horn and gets ready for the hunt. And as we reach the later Renaissance, you can see the tooling and the brushwork of the scroll going all around the edge in this wonderful Arabella jar, drug jar, the vibrancy of the brushwork. And now this took me 20 years to discover. And that is, there is another complexity about the scroll, which it took me a very long time to figure out, because a lot of these things were drawn freehand. They were not traced. So how on earth did they do all this interlacing going on? And then I realized what they did is they broke the line. So when you're drawing the scroll, you break the line. So here, I've broken the line, and now I can shoot through. I can interlace. I can do all sorts of wonderful things. I'm free. I'm suddenly free of the confines of the scroll. And here's this naughty pooty sitting here, breaking the line, breaking all the rules. And there's the acanthus down here, embellishing the scroll. This is his buddy here with his tail, and there's a naughty bird. There's all sorts of movement and action going, but it's to do with the breaking of the line. And then I found this helmet, which is another example of the breaking of the line. And this is done by a great armorer called Filippo Negroni in Milan, in Italy. And the Iznik potters were very well rehearsed in the scroll, and they did these beautiful pots. Now you'll see there's a breaking of the line. Very generally, they're sort of in competition with other potters, so they eyed these things. But they also believed that if you were making something too perfect, God should have made it himself, and they were humble potters. So they had to make a mistake. Can you see the mistake in this pot? I'll give you a hint. There is like a palmet-like seeing eye here, 1, 2, but there is no third. There is no balance to this. Then the scroll starts moving further south, south of India, and it gets to Thailand and then into Vietnam. It goes across the Himalayas to Nepal and Tibet and becomes the mandala, the meditation for Buddhist monks. It becomes, like we said before, life itself. It's moving forward all the time, reflecting backwards as they meditate upon it. In Spain, it was used in country wares, roughly, suggesting tremendous movement. And as the conquistadors went into Latin America, they brought the pattern with them. And you can find this little pot on the right in Peru. Now, in south of the Sahara, I cannot find the scroll anywhere, nowhere. This is the closest I can find to it in 900 Nigerian, but it's still, in my mind, a spiral. Yet this one on the right from the Congo, there's no date. I don't know how late or early it is. But again, I am still looking for the scroll in south of the Sahara. I'm looking in Australia and Polynesia, and also in North America for the scroll before the European invasion, you could say. I can't find it anywhere. I find lots of linked spirals, but I don't find the scroll. In India, again, they digest it, it becomes theirs. They make it mystical in this beautiful chest of drawers with the inlay of ivory, following the roadmap of the scroll. And then this Hindu doorway with little eyelashes adorning the scroll, it suddenly becomes a magical place to enter into. Elizabethan garments start getting covered with the scroll. And whether it's from the influence of the Crusades when they're bringing these patterns back north, Eleanor of Aquitaine, if you look at her fabrics, you often see the scroll. But here in Elizabethan England, it became dominant. And then by the time of Charles II, scroll becomes majesty. It becomes this incredible royal grandeur. It connotes power of the utmost. And you see in this, it appears in Ham House in England. This is just the Queen's chamber. You see it up high in this top corner. You see it on the tapestry, and you see it here in the fireplace. And if you go into one of Christopher Wren's churches just off Piccadilly, St. James, you see the incredible work of the craftsman Grinling Gibbons, the great woodcarver, and he was doing the scroll in 3 dimensions. How on hell did he do that? Absolutely mind-blowing in my mind. So now I think you can see the scroll. It's everywhere. It's on carpets, it's on frames, it's on lintels. So how do you draw the scroll? So here I am drawing the scroll freehand on a piece of paper that's leading me from point A and to another point. I'm moving forward all the time. Now, if you want to learn to draw the scroll, I encourage you to draw medallions that you can trace. And I'd ask you probably to draw about 5 so you can get past just the 4. Now indulge me here. We're going to go on a drive together. Now I tried to find a car at our house, but I couldn't. All I could find was my husband's little golden tractor. So what we're going to do is, trying to get my cursor to work. Here it is. Here's the golden tractor. And what we're going to do is we're going to drive along this dotted line and we're going to try to draw a circle. And as soon as we start heading the wrong direction, it's like, uh-oh, we need to go back the other way. We need to find how to start going in the right direction. So we reverse our tractor back to that fork in the road and we take off and go that way again. And we start drawing a circle, we go around and uh-oh, we're going the wrong way. So we reverse our tractor. Now, why am I saying reversing a tractor? But anyway, here's an example of what I'm talking about. You're drawing a circle, Eric's helping me, and he's driving along and he reverses his tractor, goes back to the fork in the road, reverses, go back, and he's going the right way, going the wrong way again. So he reverses the tractor and going back. And this is why I call it a learned pattern. So, how not to draw the scroll. If you take your tractor and you turn it around like a car, so you're heading in the wrong direction, you actually screw up. You go in the wrong direction. You have to reverse back to the fork in the road. If not, you end up with this hooked pattern. Now, you're not the only one to screw up. Here's Josiah Wedgwood. Here he was making a pot for the grand opening of his place in Stoke-on-Trent, and he was copying some of those Etruscan Greek influenced pots, and he's got the palmette and the scroll, but hello, wait a minute, he hasn't got the scroll right. It's just not quite right. How could Wedgwood have got it wrong? I mean, he had Bentley help him make this, and Bentley did the grand tour, so maybe he hadn't actually seen it, he just heard about it. Anyway, here is the scroll done by Wedgwood. On the top is Wedgwood's, and at the bottom is the Greek pots that we saw earlier. And there's that hooked pattern because he turned his brain around and went heading off towards A, whereas the Greek potter reversed back to the point and went straight. So your brain, it's very difficult to do this. I warn the potters that I train, do not drive after you try to learn to do the scroll. Well, Wedgwood, he did a good job. He learned how to do it finally and got quite proficient in it and used a lot in his work, as did William Morris, the great father of the arts and crafts movement. He studied Persian and Indian patterns a lot, and he was very well versed in the scroll and used these incredible woven embellishments with it. Now, it's kind of fun to look at Klimt. He got the feeling of the scroll. I mean, it's so magical, it's moving and everything, but it's a bit like that pot in the Met. He's a bit lost. He can't quite figure it out. Whereas when I went through to the Ritz Hotel in London, which my grandfather designed, he was very well rehearsed in the scroll. He knew he had to convey this feeling of majesty, of elitism, you could say grandeur. He needed the decoration to speak of that kind of power, and he used the scroll here above the doorway. He put it on the carpets of the White Star liners with the Cunard line. But the biggest surprise of all was tracking the scroll to Antarctica. With my husband's family, this is the ship, the Endurance. Sir Ernest Shackleton had the boat built, and I don't know if he realized that the scroll was on the prow of his ship, the Endurance. And that ship, as you know, got crushed in the ice, and it's still down there. It's at the bottom of the sea in Antarctica. And there is the scroll lurking as well. So I'm finding that so exciting. So now, what's happened? What's up with decoration these days? With the minimalist movement, all these designers have decided, nah, we're not going to use it, not going to use decoration. And it stems back to the Bauhaus and earlier to an architect, Adolf Loos. And he went so far as to label ornament, in quotes, ornament a modernist crime. Since freedom from ornament is a sign of spiritual strength, the evolution of culture is synonymous with the removal of ornament from utilitarian objects. And I think it's kind of interesting with modern designers and modern architects, they've gotten rid of pattern. However, if you look on their bodies, they have no hesitation decorating their bodies. And this is my nephew asked me for a drawing of the scroll that he could tattoo on his leg. So finally, I have myself in my 60s, I have finally digested the scroll. I feel I have reached that moment that Michael Cardew long ago challenged me with. I know how to draw the scroll. I can dance with it. I can break the line. I can shoot through. I can move around with confidence around these very large jars. And I'm always looking and encouraging students and people I lecture to take it into the future, figure out a way to use the scroll as a language still. And this is done so beautifully by Kehinde Wiley in Black Light. There is this beautiful young man juggling the scroll, juggling the traditions and taking it perhaps into the future. To me, the scroll is poetry. It expresses life. It is constantly moving forward and reflecting backward, just like us. Be like the scroll, go forward, always reflecting backward, find new spaces, expression, discover it for yourself. Thank you.
It was brilliant.
Thank you.
That was wonderful.
So can you see it?
Incredible.
So now you can see in my work, I'm going to pass around this bowl. It came out of the kiln this morning. You can pass it around, but can you read the scroll in that? And if you turn it on the other side, on the outside, you might be able to see it as well. Beautiful.
It's funny, when I first saw this class coming in, I went through all your work in my house and followed the scroll and followed others that I had seen. And then I never thought of looking back. That's the real hunt, isn't it?
Yes, it's fine. Trying to find it before those dates is what I feel is so important.
That's a whole new hunt.
Mm-hmm. So I really encourage you to go out to museums and look before 560 BC. I really want to know if you find it. I want to know, I've had people crawl all over Greece, Crete looking for it. They still can. They keep sending me pictures of linked spirals and waves, but not the scroll. I really want to find it in Africa. I really want to find it in North America. Again, it came with the Europeans. I'm looking for it in China. I keep seeing things that almost resemble it. And then I find out that it was a Roman mirror that maybe somebody saw from the 1st century. It's just, there's only one or tiny speckles of it. But it is an incredible tool when you start going around the museums and start looking at, you can find it. And it's just like, it drives you bonkers, really. People almost get angry with me once they learn it. So do you have any questions or? Yes.
Does the scroll play a role in the output from Wentford Bridge?
Actually, no. And Ara Cardew is Michael Cardew's grandson, who's sitting right there and lives in Lebanon. And he can attest this. Michael, I don't think he realized what those patterns were. He just knew the feeling that was there. And Alan Cager Smith has written many, many books on pottery decoration. And I actually had to show it to him. And he was amazed. And he said, oh, it wasn't until the end of his life that he learned how to draw the scroll. So it is there, it's everywhere, and yet nobody's held it up to the light. And I wish I was an academic and I could write a thesis or something, but this is the best I can do. And I encourage you guys to keep looking.
Miranda, we have a question online. An anonymous attendee is asking, what about Paisley evolving in India? Is it based on the scroll?
I call the Paisley like the arabesque. And it's very similar to the scroll, except for it stops. It's an enclosed thing, and then it might move. But I see the Paisley pattern as something quite different. It's more like an arabesque. Do you want me to draw a Paisley pattern?
Yes.
I brought my
There's a whiteboard. Oh, you got it.
little drawing board here. But the Paisley tends to be teardrop shaped and goes round, and then it might link as well. But or it might move in a way, but it's not like the scroll. Any other questions?
Sarah, is that, I get Sarah?
There, we just got another online question. Diane Kazeka, sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong. Hi, Miranda. Thank you for the great presentation and carrying on this tradition. The evolution of the scroll reminds me of the evolutions of philosophy and religion through symbolism of the innate rather than learned symbols. In Christianity, the ring, which has no beginning and no end, thus represents infinity, and similar completed circles are found throughout the world. It's more a comment than a question, but it's an interesting one.
Yeah, no, it's very true. And there's many patterns that give us this symbolic reference, and how we read them is very important. And pots are really circles. It's just pots, things spinning and going round and round in circles. I actually bought a pot here today, so you can see the scroll appear in freehand. And I don't know if you want me to do it.
As opposed to.
I'm gonna let you out. I'm going to sit.
If that's all right. I'll sit to the side. And Christy here is one of my helpers and assistant in the pottery, and she's an incredible potter herself, and she's learning the scroll as well. And you can attest it's tricky, right?
And once you know it,
Yeah.
it's really fun to find it on pottery or museum stuff.
So I'm painting here with cobalt oxide. It's a Michael Cardew recipe, Ara, just so you know. And it doesn't look blue, but when it fires, it will turn blue. And I'm painting on a very powdery surface, which is my glaze, which will melt at 2,360 degrees into a glaze. And the blue cobalt will melt into this glaze, and it'll be a wonderful decorative pot. Excuse me. So there's your lines. And then I've got all this space to cover, right? So here goes. Actually, I'm gonna just indulge me for a second. And I'm gonna give you an idea of the wave. Ara is very, very good at doing this. You have to slow your wheel down. You have to jiggle your brush. And that's how you get the wave. And then I'm going to start doing my medallions. I've got the back of the pot because I've got my signature here, and I'm going to start breaking the line as I go around the scroll. You can see it fits the form beautifully. And then at the end here, this is where I can shoot through like I talked about. And I start working my way backwards along that line. Here I can wiggle my way across here. And you can see how I use that as a roadmap backwards. We're all very quiet.
It's funny, when I looked at that pattern before, how many times have I looked at it? I never thought of it as moving back,
Backwards.
going backward.
It's almost impossible to do going forwards. I find it impossible.
Yeah.
You can see my brush is getting a bit dry. Backwards. Now it's a pretty rough scroll. However, if you then take it next step. Yeah, I've got my brush. I have to try. Oh, yeah. This I'm going to just very quickly fill the negative space. And you can see the scroll emerge. It's so fun, all these different shapes. You can then do all sorts of things inside of them. You can elaborate with them, do other things. I don't want to bore you, so.
We're not bored. It's a treasure to see this board.
We're fascinated.
There you go. Fascinated.
And you can see that it's an exploration into shape, into space as well. But I did bring some pieces of paper with me, and if you wanted to have a go at trying to learn to draw it, very happy to show you. Don't think we have to vacate the room. I'm whipping along here. I normally wouldn't do it this quickly. I'm just trying to cover space. But you can see there's a lot of space to cover.
It's helpful when you fill the negative spaces.
Can you guys see the negative spaces as I go?
Yeah.
Yep. Now, is that acanthus?
No, I wouldn't call this acanthus. It's sort of a derivation of it. It's simple, very simplified, a sort of leaf form.
Yeah.
The acanthus has lovely lobes and very real intricacies to it. But
So
again, the acanthus is another thing to hunt down. Sorry, I interrupted somebody.
No, I just said this was so cool.
what is this?
This is actually more of a Chinese scroll. They simplified things, and it's sort of more of a lobed, or maybe it's just a Miranda Thomas kind of scroll.
New England. Farm.
But there are all sorts of devices that you learn to deal with what I call the why. That's just a lobe, but you can go deeper into it. You could do something like that to it. You can make it more defined. Almost done here. Anyway, we decorated this very big pot a bit quickly. I mean, I'm lucky I can wash this off because of the glaze is underneath. But I encourage you to come and visit the pottery and hang out and watch us doing this. And what we do with the black carved piece, like I was showing you, we actually drawing freehand through the black slip, and then we carve away all the negative spaces, just like on this little tree of life pot. There we go. I think I've pretty much done that.
Miranda, do you have visits to the pottery studio?
Yes, we do. And these days, since COVID, we ask people to make an appointment to come actually into the studio, but our store is open all the time. And there's somebody demonstrating, usually on Saturdays. So then I might come and really wash down my pigment, and I might start adding a sort of tonal aspect to this scroll, just like on those Italian drug jars you saw.
Miranda, we have someone asking, where is the store and is there an online link?
Yes, it's in Bridgewater, Vermont. And if you Google Miranda Thomas pottery or Shackleton Thomas, I'm the Thomas, my husband is the Shackleton. Shackleton Thomas in Bridgewater, Vermont. And we have an extensive website and you can see all the work there. Well, I encourage you to come to visit the workshops though, because they're extensive. There are 6 furniture makers and a total of 5 potters, 2 of which work in the actual pottery. The others work from home, and then myself.
And we also have 2 comments from attendees online. Suzanne Bertram Leduc said, I'm so glad I've stayed up very late to watch and learn. The flow of life always moving fluidly forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Suzanne. She's calling from France.
And we also have Bob Wagner. Thank you, Miranda, and thank you, Osher, for a very interesting presentation. I had no idea the scroll had a history. Cheers.
Oh, wonderful. I'm so glad. So I've got my posse of new hunters now. Do you see any bits that I've missed? A few, actually. Anyway, we could keep going deeper and deeper and deeper into the space. If we wanted to, we could start elaborating these areas. Perhaps do little miniature scrolls, within here. It's kind of fun. You can have a lot of fun. So feel free to come and fiddle. And then I'm going to set up here and you guys can all follow along with me if you want to try to draw it. It's there.
And trying to find the pattern. Go forward or backwards.
You have pencils. I think I have. We've got markers. It's a dry erase, but I guess unless we use a whiteboard. We could do it on the whiteboard.
One pencil there, I can look at the kitchen.
So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put a point A here and a point A. Now,
We should do that on paper.
yep. If you could do, draw point A and point A, right? So you have enough. Oh, great.
Miranda, while we're waiting, I have a question. Is this mostly on pottery? You've seen the scroll? I mean, it makes me think it's, you're seeing it in a circle.
It's
On paintings
everywhere.
and flat.
It's on.
So this is for the
architecture,
online
it's on
participants.
Furniture.
Thank
it's
you
on
online for coming to see this fantastic presentation. Right now, we're doing a demonstration and we're doing some field work or whatever. Thank you for coming.
So it doesn't matter if you can draw